The fact of the matter is, whether you've been in network marketing for years or just a few days, your family and friends have seen your opportunity and your phone is, as we call it, burnt. If you're anything like me, that's a scary thought. So the big question is, how do entrepreneurs like us, who love the network marketing profession, who no longer want to be that guy, and are tired of convincing people during uncomfortable let's get coffee meetings where they say, what's this all about? How do we market in a way that aligns us with our dream clients and expands our network of upfront and transparent professionals, allowing us to get our time back, our families back, and gain a real passive asset? People like us who value impact over income, we deserve to see our visions once and for all. Join me in this podcast where we'll uncover just how to do that. My name is Eric Sablon. Welcome to Burnt Phone Marketing. What's going on? Burnt Phone Marketing, Eric Sablon here. I'm live with Cristian Martinez. And one thing that's really cool about Cristian is I was in a challenge with him a while back, and he created these slides for this challenge we were doing, and it was just amazing. And he literally did them over and over and over. It was a 30-day challenge. He actually works on a system which is equipping leaders. It's enriching marriages and empowering youth. He's also been in the military for 18 years. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you. He's got an amazing wife. And if you jump on some of his lives, you'll see how amazing these two interact together. I was on a live yesterday, and it was an amazing way to see how they drop the content and how they drop their knowledge of what they're doing. So right now, I just want to introduce Cristian Martinez. Thank you for jumping on with us. And let me get a little bit about your backstory.
Hey, thank you for having me, Eric. It's been a pleasure and an honor kind of interacting with you and going through the challenge and kind of like hearing all the ahas. And so for me, my journey started, when I was, in high school. One of the things that I realized is that, the things that I didn't want, I was actually inadvertently going down that path. So I didn't want to not have a plan for my life, and not knowingly that's what I was doing. I wanted to make sure that I was, being intentional about being successful, but I wasn't. Unfortunately, I was one of those in the majority where I grew up without a father in the home, and to tell you a little bit about that backstory, my dad, he was a successful dentist. He had 3 practices. And unfortunately for me, he did some of the things that I did as a young kid. He had friends and he wanted to, impress them. He wanted to hang around them. And unfortunately for him, once he became a successful dentist, these guys were still doing what they did. They were basically not doing anything for themselves or for the community. They were into drugs, and they wanted to literally run drugs out of his practice. And he was not cool with that. However, he didn't want to say no to his friends. Mm-hmm. So, long story short, what ended up happening is they had a lot of respect for my mom. My mom worked in the hospital. She took care of most of these guys. She worked her way up the corporate ladder, and she did really good for herself. But at one point, they came to her and they said, listen, your husband, Cristian, is not letting us do what we want to do. If he continues down this path, we're going to set him up. And, because he can't be in our town doing what he wants to do. So basically, out of spite, they, plant drugs in my dad's practice, call the cops on him, and my dad went to jail. So unfortunately for me, I had to, I grew up without a dad in the home for about 14 years. But did that change my perception of my dad? No, I absolutely loved him. And my mom was kind of like confused, like, why do you love him when he's putting friends over family? So, fast forward to me, I felt like I was doing that same thing. Before coming into the military, before meeting my wife, it was all about my friends, everything that I did. And I realized that I was going down this path where I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do, the ambitions that I had, the dreams that I had. And out of sheer luck, when I joined the military, I was on a deployment, and one of my friends had asked me to unpack a box, and it was basically equipment for this specific journey. And as we were taking out the equipment, I found this leadership book. And the book was the first book that I actually went through and read. So I read the entire book and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta change. This is what I need to be doing in my life. And so that's where my leadership journey began. And then at the time I had, been married, and I realized that although I was in the home, I wasn't present. So I was doing something similar to what my dad was doing, and that was not sitting well with me. So as I was reading this book, I ordered another book. I went to the library, I rented a book, and when I got home, there was a change. There was something different about me, and my wife couldn't pinpoint it, but she liked it. And so I told her that I wanted to change. I wanted to be better, for not only for her, but for my family, because I don't want to just exist. I don't want to just be present. And so that is, I think, where the evolution of leadership legacy began. I wanted to become a better leader. I wanted to leave something better for my family. And I also wanted to make sure that everything that I learned, that I invested in my children. And so I did a lot of coaching moving forward, like serious coaching, basketball, sports. That was my avenue of giving back to the kids. And what I would do is, instead of trying to teach them the sport, I would teach them how to navigate life. So my goal was to just empower them and spend time with them, but teach them things that I wish I knew as a kid. And so that's where my coaching kind of began. And I always joke that I've been coaching for 14 years, and it's true. I've been coaching, people on life lessons for 14 years. But I actually got really serious and started to monetize that, as I got older, because people were asking, like, how have you achieved the success that you've had? And I was like, well, it's not really success. Success is what you define as success. People think that it's money and cars, and that's not what it is. I look back and I think, how can I, say something but do something else in front of my children or in front of my wife? And so we did that. We felt like it was time for us to grow our business. So about 4 years ago, we started this journey on leadership legacy. So we've been in business 4 years, and one of the things that has stuck out to us was, relationships. We wanted to have a great relationship, but we knew we had to be intentional about it. And some of the things and the mistakes that we made, we've been using that to help people understand that, like, these mistakes don't have to be detrimental to your relationship. They can be a launching pad. And so it's been a journey, and we've evolved. And so that's why we do that. So I've been part of the John Maxwell team. So I joined that organization to become a better leader. As you said, Eric, I did ClickFunnels because I wanted to just figure out, how can I get my message out to the world in the right way? I don't ever feel like, I've never been a big proponent of selling, but I know that if I'm not selling to people, then somebody's going to be selling to me or to them. And I want to make sure that they get the right message from somebody that cares. So that's a little bit of my backstory in a nutshell. I hope I answered your question. You
did. So one thing that I like to kind of revisit what you said is, like, one thing that I pulled from there is the 5 friends.
Yeah.
With you moving forward and with your dad, it's either, you empower, they empower you, or they pull you down.
Yep.
And so I always say, I want you to think about the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And then I want you to ask yourself, well, first I'd say, income, marriage, everything that they're doing in life, is that okay?
Absolutely.
And if it's not, then you either need to reach up and get new friends, or you need to slowly move to a different network.
Absolutely.
And then another thing you said was not present at the home. Mm-hmm. And I feel that there's a lot of people out there in business, in family, in relationships, in kids, that they're there, but they're not there. Mm-hmm. And I remember a while back when my kids were going to, and there's one thing I could take back. I never missed a basketball game or a football game that all of my kids were in. But sometimes mentally I wasn't there. I was there physically, but I wasn't there mentally. So I always tell people that you need to be present in the present. Mm-hmm. And if you take that with you, presence in the presence, you're going to cherish the moments that you have with your family. And then, I always tell people about dream, struggle, victory. And I love what you're doing with the leadership legacy, because you're taking your struggles and you're compressing them down. You're explaining them so people understand what it is that you went through, so they can align themselves with, okay, well, if I do this, Christian said, he went through this, I don't have to go through exactly what he went through to get the victory.
Absolutely.
That's some big nuggets that you dropped in there.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, you know, because of the way that society is designed, sometimes we feel like, you know, well, I want to learn on my own, or I want to just figure it out on my own. And from firsthand, you know, going to some of these events and attending some of these conferences, that like you can't buy speed.
Right.
You know, if you want to be successful, you got to model success. You got to be around people that are doing the things that you want to do, and then embody the things that you love. But this is one thing that I learned, and I learned it through actually a message. This guy was talking to the congregation, and he was talking about, I don't even remember the message, but what's funny is he said, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
To get everybody's attention. And he said, listen, I said that because oftentimes you're in a position where people will talk to you, and not everything that they're saying is for you. So you have to learn how to dissect that conversation and take what's for you and take what's not for you, because maybe you don't necessarily respect the individual, but they have something of value to provide for you. Maybe you don't align with that specific message, but guess what? Like, you can get something out of that and apply it to your life and be super successful. You know, our kids are a great example of this. You know, my oldest son, he's a little bit of a A-type personality. And, you know, for him, at times I'll say, hey, I'm sharing this with you because I don't want you to go through some of the struggles that I did. And he will pause and say, well, how do you expect me to learn? You know, and I'm like, seriously? Like, you want to fail? You want to struggle? But that's, you know, that's sometimes like, you know, I call it the pride walk, right? We gotta kind of do these things because we think that it's easier if I do it my way, when there's an easier way, a better way, a faster way. So that's really good.
Yeah. And one thing on that one is, like, I did an interview not too long ago, a young kid, 24 years old, but he talked about inventorying how coachable you really are. And I was like, that's a huge nugget. So inventorying how coachable you really are. Because a lot of times, oh yeah, I'm coachable. But then you're like, well, I'm stuck on the way that I do this, and I'm stuck on the way that I do this, and I'm stuck on the way that I do this. And, you know, John, when we did his interview, his overall goal is to, if you read his book or you do what he's doing, he wants to compress your time frames by 10 years. That's his biggest goal. So yeah, huge nuggets. So I'm going to go into, we talked about your business and kind of your future-based cause, and I love that. But so it's leadership legacy. And guys, if you've never seen one of the lives that Christian and his wife have done, it's fantastic. So take a look at what we'll find where to find you. I'll drop that in the show notes. So being an entrepreneur and a leader for 14 years, you've been a coach for 14 years. You've been in the military for 18 years. 14, let's just go back 14 years ago. What would be the one thing you would have told yourself when you started in coaching and in your business to increase the speed of your business? What would it be?
I think the first thing that I would tell myself is you can't give from an empty cup. You know, oftentimes, you know, we want to teach others, but we haven't learned enough. And I think I wasn't an avid reader, like I shared. You know, I had been coaching for a long time, but I didn't start like really being intentional about reading until it was like being separated from my family, being forced to kind of like, you know, have alone time and grow. So I think the first thing I would have told myself is you can't give from an empty cup. Making sure that you understand that in order to add value to people, in order to help people, you have to first help yourself. You can teach people a whole bunch of things, but people are going to become what you are eventually. They're going to model what you model. So for me, you know, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't a hypocrite. So I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good leader. I want to be a good entrepreneur. And that all comes from, learning from people that have had success along the way. So I think that would be the first thing that I would have told myself.
So yeah, so it sounds like, I like to always give I always like to give what overflow of abundance. And that's one of the things that I like to do is I just share. And that's one of the reasons why we have this Burnt Phone Marketing podcast, because I don't know what's going to help somebody, but I know that if it's out there, it will help somebody. And I like what you said, become what you are eventually. Your audience is going to become what you are. They're going to take the nuggets that you do. And I can tell that you're in John Maxwell because you use the word intentionally all the time. Intentionally.
Yeah.
My name is John and I'm your friend. I love
it. Yes.
So what are you currently working on right now? Tell us what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. So really one of the things that we've been doing is, as you just alluded to, is being really intentional about giving more. And so what we've designed is a few things to kind of like help our audience just fast track their progress. Like you were just mentioning, and I think you mentioned it was John.
Yeah, John Schwartz.
Yeah. So, so basically, we have 3 different things that we're doing. So we have, for leaders, we have what's called a Dream Mastermind, where we're basically just helping people just understand that in order to achieve your dreams, there's a few things that you need to do to accomplish that. So it's an intentional program to help you just understand the things that you need to remove and the things that you need to start doing. Oftentimes we get so distracted, and I learned this, it became more evident and magnified when I went through the One Funnel Away, but identifying the who and not the how. I know I got stuck forever trying to figure out every component of my business. And I think for leaders and for entrepreneurs, that is a death trap. So the Dream Mastermind is intentionally designed for that, to help people just understand, hey, get clarity on your purpose, understand where you need to be, and more importantly, understand who you are, because the world needs your gift. And if you continue down the path that you're doing now, everything that you've done in your life has given you the results that you have right now. So for me, it's important that if you want to be the success that you desire, if you want to achieve your dreams, this is the specific program for leaders and entrepreneurs. That program right there. And it has just, we have like 3 or 4 tools in there that are just mind blowing. I think the tools themselves are just, amazing, but we do a pretty decent job teaching in there. Me and my wife tag team it. So that's what we're doing for entrepreneurs and leaders. As far as marriages, we're coming out with a 14-day marriage challenge. And that, my friend, is just amazing. Me and my wife went through the challenge, and we're like, if you can sit down with somebody that's going to give you completely honest feedback, and they cry during the challenge, they open up to you how they've never opened up to you before. That's amazing. And so I'm talking about like me and my wife going through this challenge together. We shared some things, we cried about some things, and she was like, this is awesome. And that's not us talking about just what we're doing. It's just going through and applying the things that we've learned and getting really, really dialed in to help people understand that you can have the marriage that you want. You have to design it. You have to create it. So the 14-day marriage challenge, it has a few compliments and a few hidden kind of like gems in there for the audience. If it's something that you're interested in getting better and enriching your marriage, and we even call it, one of the steps that we have is almost like a reset button, where you basically say, you know what, from this point forward, this is who I am. And I think oftentimes we hold on to the past. We say we forgive, but all we do is bring up those things that have hurt us. So, the marriage challenge is amazing. It's awesome. And it was very refreshing, because it was something that we went through and we asked our audience what they were struggling with. They told us, and then we went back and we kind of modified some of the things, because we wanted to make sure that not only was it valuable, but it was real and authentic. And then the last thing we're doing is we have a youth challenge. So every year we do 2 youth challenges for the entire month of April and the entire month of October. We've partnered with the John Maxwell team to do what's called Global Youth Initiative, where we're trying to reach 1 million youth. Now, throughout the year, my wife and I, we go to schools, we teach on leadership, we teach on bullying. We even have like a skit that we do. It's pretty funny. The kids love it. But more importantly, we teach kids about self-discovery. It's important that before you try to help anybody else, that you have self-awareness. So understanding where they are in their lives, how they respond, how they learn is essential to their development. And so we've spent a lot of time, with this, youth program, just trying to help youth understand that, like, you don't have to be what everybody else is telling you to be. You need to just be you. Because as adults, we're telling each other that, like, you have to be the very best version of yourself. But if you start young, you can create some dynamic leaders because they're our future. So those are the 3 things that we're working on right now, to just kind of like add value to our community and help those that are along the way, go faster than we did.
Right, man. Number one on what I like about your 3 pillars is you're taking leaders. Well, let's just start with the youth. You're taking the youth and you're creating leaders.
Yes.
And one thing that I like about that is it's, you're giving them a defined focus on what they, the tools and the framework of what they need to be to become a leader. And then when they become a leader in the leadership mastermind, then they take their leadership to their marriage. And then it just becomes an overall, you've created a great youth from what you've come from your stories. You've created a great leader at the workplace, at churches, at all the environments. And then at home, you've created a leader as a spouse. And I know you go into spouse and parenting and stuff like that in that marriage thing, because, man, just the 3 pillars that you stand on. And then I know you do a whole lot with the spiritual side of it. The 3 pillars that you stand on help the world. And one thing that I like about what Stephen Larson says is you need to change your world before you change the world.
Yes.
And you are changing your world, going through the stuff that you've already gone through, and then sharing it with the world. So you're like already on that journey past that, past the part where you're giving back to people. And like I said, the other day when I was on your live, it was just fantastic. So your content and stuff. And I always talk about the Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
You can't, I always tell my boys is, you can't give what you don't have. So when you fill that cup, you're giving something that you have. Like I always tell them, they're like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, look, the reason why the Good Samaritan was the Good Samaritan is because he had the knowledge and the finances and the ability and the heart to give back and just put it out there for them, for that person. So remember that is like the Good Samaritan. I always try to explain the Good Samaritan. The reason why he could help is because he had his stuff together before he gave it to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So the last thing, we kind of talked about books and seminars. One book, one seminar you would definitely do. I know you're a John Maxwell guy. I'm assuming this is one of those, but one book that you would say that you would share with the audience that would just drop nuggets and help them with their speed in either, leadership, marriage, or empowering the youth. What would one be?
Wow. There's been so many. I think, well, one of the books that we often talk about in our lives is a book that we created. It's called Never Give Up. It's a small book, less than 30 pages. And if you'd like, that's something that I'll, provide for your audience for free. It's Never Give Up. And it's basically 70 tips to just be persistent and be successful. We share stories in there. We just talk about we involve everything. So that was just like things that we thought about when it comes to relationship, leadership, and youth. So it's all combined in one. And it came from different books that we've read. I think if I was to share a book that's already published for for people to go physically have, it would probably be one of John Maxwell's books, and it's Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. Yeah. And it's just because it talks about just understanding that you may not win everything that you do in life, but if you did, you know, you wouldn't appreciate, you know, the wins as much.
Right.
So, I think that's super important. I think for me, one of the struggles that I had is I wanted to be successful, and I think success was defined by wins versus by learns. And now I define success by how much am I learning along the way? How much better am I getting? How much more can I help people because of what I've learned?
It goes all the way back to one of my mentors tells me, like I was saying earlier, dream, struggle, victory.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody relates to your struggle. Like everybody can relate to your struggle. They don't always want to see the win. They want to see what you went through to get there. And then, you know, once you hit that success, some of them are going to, that's where you get that defining moment where all of a sudden you have your haters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They'll all support you when you're in the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But once you hit the victory, then it's like, all of a sudden you're like, wow, were you really my friend?
Yep.
So I got, you know, man, so many great nuggets. So give more, never give up. I'm going to get that book. So just let me know where I can go. We'll drop it in the show notes and
Absolutely.
definitely share it with the audience. Never give up. That's huge. And then Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn by John Maxwell. Again, we'll drop that in the show notes as well. And I always ask this is my favorite question because it really peels back the onion, really peels back who Cristian really is. But the interview has been fantastic so far. In your business today, what's the one thing that keeps you up at night, good, bad, or both? And I'm just going to tell you one thing, that I know one of the great things that you have in your business is you coexist and work with your wife daily. Mm-hmm. And I think that when I saw you guys work together, that is such a really cool thing. So that's one thing that would keep me up at night, just keep going, because I get to work with my wife. But what is the one thing that keeps you up, good, bad, or both? Pick one.
So that's an awesome question, and it's a really thought-provoking question, because I think the things that keep me up at night are, you know, am I making a difference? Am I making an impact that lines up with my faith and with my journey? I think for me, it's more important that everything that I do lines up with what I've been called to do. You know, for a long time, I think, you know, I keep going back to success because I think people define that the wrong way. And I think what used to keep me up at night was money. What keeps me up at night now is impact and fulfillment. Like, am I able to help people understand that they can have a marriage, and that if they truly, truly apply the things that we're teaching, divorce would never be an option. Right. Divorce wouldn't even be like a thought. Because oftentimes, you know, we think that the grass is greener on the other side.
Still needs to be mowed.
But we did a Facebook Live on this, and it was literally a grass example. And the grass is greener where you water it, where you nurture it, where you irrigate it, where you feed it. Everything of value in life comes from you being intentional, you being devoted to that one cause. And I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me up, as far as, you know, I think maybe the good, that's the good. And I think the bad is, you know, am I continuously living my purpose? You know, because I don't want to ever be not in line with what I'm called to do. And so I think those two things kind of like, they maybe coincide, they may be the same thing. But I think about that a lot. You know, my wife will, you know, sometimes ask me, hey, you know, what's going on? Like, you're deep in thought. Like, we had this conversation last night. And I was like, I just want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I don't ever want to be out of step with my purpose. And I think that keeps me up at night. So I think, right before we started an interview, I had kind of exchanged with you that, I don't know, like sometimes I know that God had told me leadership legacy. And initially I was like, oh, cool, cliche, like leadership legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started thinking, okay, so the legacy part is our children. The leadership part, self-evident, that's their leaders. Mm-hmm. But then leadership legacy, when you bring it together, that's marriage. What type of legacy are you leaving for others? What are we doing, not only through our example, but through our children? So initially, leadership legacy was born from I thought was a cool name that I came up with, but no, that was given to me. And it was something that's been really profound, but I still stay up at night thinking about, am I in my purpose? Although I love doing what I'm doing. I love enriching marriages, empowering youth, and equipping leaders. I sometimes have that maybe imposter syndrome. Like, am I in my purpose? So I think that's, what's been keeping me up at night, because I want to make a difference in the world. I want to help people and I want to fast track their progress. But sometimes I think, am I in my purpose?
So one thing that's huge. That's huge. And I always say, I read this book a long time ago. I say a lot from stage, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Some people know where it's from. Some people know what book it's from. Some people don't. But I always use that as a saying for what I stand on. And, I like what you've done. You're designed to help people. And here's what I'd say. And this is maybe just a quick coaching thing. If you have testimonials for what you do, and I know you do, you're heading in the right direction and you are changing and helping people's lives. So there's no imposter syndrome, bro. There's no imposter syndrome at all. If you have one person that you helped, one person and I was on your lives yesterday and people were like, yes, yes, yes. So just know, we just connected. Just know that there's no imposter syndrome in what you're doing, in leadership legacy, in Cristian Martinez. There's no imposter syndrome. So just know that. So guys, I'm closing out this interview. Just remember, make sure you listen to the entire outro, because I'm actually giving away, what we're going to do is probably give away, number one, Cristian's book, Never Give Up. We'll actually send that through a PDF. Check the show notes. But the last thing we'll be giving away is there's a 30-day summit for marketers. And everyone that's actually been in marketing before knows that it's tough. It's a hard thing to do. So what I'm giving away to you, all you have to do is, drop your email in the page that I put at the end. All you do is you'll get a 30-day summit for all of the people, network marketers that have lost everything and they're rebuilding again. It's a 30-day free summit. You guys can jump on board. Just don't forget, watch the whole and listen to the entire outro. And I thank you guys. Cristian, appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And I see the Eagles shirt, so I'm just going to say go Eagles. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
I know that marketing can be tough. So what I did for you guys is I put together a free summit with 30 of the top internet marketers in the world. Basically what they're doing is they're sharing their story. If they lost everything, what would they do? So I put it in the description of this podcast. Also, if you go to it, it's www.burntphoneChallenge.com/summit OFA. So go ahead and go and link to that. It's free. Enjoy the training, and we'll see you on another episode of Burnt Phone Marketing.